Bienvenue pour la station télévision MTN avec nous en Caille-Concite aujourd'hui, côté la session spéciale Kachin, pour discuter différents sujets. Nous avons commencé tout à l'heure après déjeuner, puisqu'il était pour une petite pause pour déjeuner. Avant déjeuner, les sessions ont commencé. Nous avons speaker qui parlait en chai. Sur ça, il a créé Privileges Committee. Privileges Committee, c'est côté, si la n'y a plainte qui fait contre l'un à l'autre, il y a discuter avec le speaker, il y a un rapport à ce qui manière ça travaille. Il dit, l'année déjà, des rapports qui sont allés devant le comité. Ça, c'est même parlement pour Sud-Mikou, c'est honorable Alan Chasney, contre. Ça, c'est même parlement pour Cassou Saint-Oile. Ok, nous allons proposer à présent, puisque nous allons expliquer à 4 pour la deuxième session.
Good afternoon, members, and for the record, we do have a quorum. When the House last rose, we were debating the Income Tax Amendment Act. The member for Vieux-Fort North. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this amendment to the Income Tax Act comes within a context. And Mr. Speaker, we must continue to remind honorable members and the people of St. Lucia of that context. The Minister for Finance and the member for Castries East, Prime Minister, designed this and comes to the House with this amendment so that the context within which this government is being administered, the context within which the economy is being run, can be understood. The member for Miku South, Mr. Speaker, spoke about promises which were made during the election campaign, and he directed us to his own opinions about this government being unable to keep its promises. We need to remind our people, Mr. Speaker, and remind honorable members of the record of this member for Miku South and the leader of the opposition. This Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, and Minister for Finance, Member of Parliament for Castries East, his team continues to be, and his modus operandi, the way he's managing this government continues to be, recovery and stimulating the economy with careful handling of the drivers of growth, mobilizing in a very passionate way the society around hope and prosperity for the future. And if you look at how the Minister for Finance has been operating, Mr. Speaker, you will understand the context within which this amendment is proposed to the House. I therefore support the amendment to the Income Tax Act because, Mr. Speaker, this amendment will bring tremendous relief and benefit to our people. And the Minister for Finance has explained that 14,000 people will benefit, and other colleagues on the government side have also supported by explaining why this amendment is important and the impact it will have on the economy. I listened to all members who spoke before me, and I understand the difficulties, the challenges with tax policy all around the Caribbean governments are grappling with tax policy and other fiscal measures to stabilize our economies in the face of challenges, in the face of increases in the price of crude oil, in the face of the challenges which we have because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our economies, and in the face of what has happened because of the war on Ukraine. But Mr. Speaker, let us look at the member for Miku South and his own performance. How did he handle a situation? How did he handle the economy, Mr. Speaker? When he came into government, Mr. Speaker, what he found was a narrowing of the fiscal deficit, which was between 9 and 7%. And by the time he came into office, by the time he took on the reins of the Ministry of Finance, the deficit was about 3.2%. That is what he found. In his first budget address, Mr. Speaker, in his very first budget address, if you go to page 13 of the 2017 budget address by the member for Miku South, at the time, tourism did not perform as well, but that was the only sector of the economy which did not perform well. But if you go through his own deliberations, you will find that agriculture at the time grew by 4%. Construction, which led the growth at the time, accounted for 60% of the real GDP growth. Manufacturing, 7.2% increase. And that is what he found. And he found an economy on a growth trajectory, Mr. Speaker. That is what he found. But what did he do? How did he handle the fundamentals of the economy, Mr. Speaker? How did he craft his policies to cause tourism, agriculture, and all of the fundamentals of the economy to grow and to cause St. Lucia to do better? And when he criticizes this Minister for Finance, you will see the difference between his leadership and stewardship and the leadership and stewardship of this member for Castries East. Very, very different. So if you go to page 13 of his first budget address, the member for Miku South, Mr. Speaker, he spoke about promises, but there are lots of promises in there. Lots of promises in 2017. He said hotels would improve. There will be 2,000 more rooms, hotel rooms, on page 13, Mr. Speaker, of his budget address. 2,000 new hotel rooms. He spoke about the Fairmont St. Lucia Resort in Sabuisha, which he said would begin in the last quarter of 2017. He spoke on or about April 20-something, I think, 2017, and then he said the Fairmont would begin in the last quarter of 2017. He spoke about Honeymoon Bay Resort, the National Apprenticeship Program which he introduced, and Member of Parliament for Castries North, Senior Minister, spoke about it. Of course, the National Apprenticeship Program came from the NICE program, which we had when we were in government, Mr. Speaker. What did they do? And the Member of Parliament for Castries North said it. He stopped the program, over 1,200 people working. He stopped it. So when you do that, you are clearly interfering with the fundamentals of the economy, Mr. Speaker. You are impacting employment. Agriculture-led growth on page 13. He said they would have a big agriculture-led growth. Bananas, so many things about bananas, Mr. Speaker. And then we were promised that bananas would be shipped to France for many, many, many years. Another fundamental of the economy. Even though agriculture, over the last few years, have not contributed as much to the economy, it is still fundamental. And if you are concerned about the fundamentals of the economy, you are concerned about income distribution, you are concerned about rural development, you would be very focused on ensuring that bananas and the agriculture sector, that you cause action to happen there. What happened? Nothing. So in the last 2 years of his administration, 2.5 to 3 years, no banana exports, to the United Kingdom, no banana exports to France. And this is a member of parliament who comes to speak about we making promises and so on. Mr. Speaker, on page 19 of his budget address in 2017, DSH and the member of parliament for Castries South spoke about it eloquently. There will be 4 jobs for every horse, and they will begin with 400 horses. We must not forget these things, Mr. Speaker. We must not forget these things. And he said that we must be bold and take bold decisions, just like Rodney Bay Marina and all of those things. On page 19 of his budget address. HIA, Mr. Speaker, again on page 19 of his budget address. He will know International Airport, and he spoke glowingly about what would happen at Iwano International Airport. Again, on page 35 of his address, Mr. Speaker, he spoke about tax reform and VAT and the reduction of VAT, and all of us know what happened as a result of the reduction of VAT. Did the people get the benefits of the reduction of VAT, Mr. Speaker? Did the prices go down in the supermarkets? He spoke about the Castries redevelopment program. The Castries redevelopment program, Mr. Speaker, I can go on and on and on. And what we have to do is to look at the results of all of these policies in his first budget address. Look at the results. And then go to the first budget address of this Minister for Finance, which would take us to what we're doing today. The income tax amendments. And look at the difference. And this member from Miku South, Mr. Speaker, always speaks about economic growth. Oh, you need to create jobs. You need to provide economic growth. When he was Prime Minister, he spoke about 10 years of average economic growth of about 1 to 3% per annum. 10 years. And he said that can't be. We have to grow the economy in double digits. And we are going to do it with DSH and $2.6 billion of investment. We already secured it, and all of that kind of thing. This income tax amendment, the amendment to the Income Tax Amendment Act, you didn't hear the Prime Minister speak about all of these glowing promises. Very simple, very direct. We promised you something. We cannot do it yet, but this is what we are going to do now. And while these words may sound very simple, they are meaningful, Mr. Speaker. We are a government of truth and a government of facts, a government of direct talk to the people of St. Lucia. We are not a government of bluff. So when I heard the member from Miku South speak about all of those things, and I know they're talking about healthcare, and as I've said before, we can go to his speech to find out what they said about healthcare. And I've said every time I'm asked the question, I am not going to gloat about healthcare this and healthcare that, and I did this and who did this and who did that. The problems with healthcare in St. Lucia are long-standing problems. And as a country, we have to come together to solve these problems. All I can tell them is this. Between the time we came into government and now, I was made Minister for Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs on the 5th of August 2021. And I can tell you and show you and demonstrate to you every single success which we have had on the way marching towards universal health care. That is where we are. No fluff and bluff. In fact, as we speak, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ned came from the United States, and he asked the Prime Minister to speak to some professionals. He too has some ideas about healthcare financing. And immediately we organized it. And as we speak, they are at the Millennium Heights Medical Complex with private doctors from the sector and healthcare professionals, as we speak, discussing healthcare financing to look at other perspectives and what we can do as a country. We are taking action, Mr. Speaker. We have already formed the Universal Healthcare Unit at the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs. We have a Universal Healthcare Director in the person of Dr. Alicia Eugene Ford. And we have had several consultations. And very soon, in a week or two, the World Bank, together with ministers of health from around the sub-region, from the OECS and other professionals, are coming down, and professionals from South Korea are coming down so that we can finalize, together with our professionals in St. Lucia, a way forward for universal health care. Not only for St. Lucia, but looking at the lessons in Jamaica and the other countries to do something positive, not just talk and bluff. We are not about that, to just tell everybody you're going to get this and get that. Step by step, we are solving the problems of this country, step by step, together with the people of St. Lucia. So, Mr. Speaker, this is the record of the former Prime Minister and the Minister and the member for Miku South. This is very different to what we are seeing here. The Member of Parliament for Castries East, the Prime Minister has said to you that 14,000 people will not pay income tax. Why am I interested in this? Because in Vieux-Fort North, if you are making $2,000 or less, you will not pay income tax. That is my interest, that is my concern. Why am I interested again? Because those people in Vieux-Fort North who are making $2,000 or less, who will not pay income tax, will spend $15 or $20 more in the little supermarkets in Vieux-Fort North. They will have more money to spend in the communities, or they will have more money to spend on school books, or they will have more money to spend on other aspects of their lives. We continue to put the people first, and every single time we come to Parliament, we are demonstrating that we are putting the people first. Mr. Speaker, I need not go over all of the things that demonstrate that this government is different, whether it be in taxation policy or simple activities which were held for years and years, but we have come in and given these things new life. And all politicians, well, I don't know all, but politicians would know that economic growth by itself does not make your country successful. Economic growth by itself. The Member of Parliament for Miku South continues to stress on economic growth. Oh, you are growing the economy. Blah, blah, blah. Economic growth by itself, just by itself, does not cut it. You have to look at income distribution. You have to look at whether people are hopeful, whether people are safe. You understand? Growth equity. Whether people feel that the tourism dollar is reaching them. Whether people feel that they are part of the decision making in the country. So it's not just about economic growth. And look at this government. In addition to this amendment to the Income Tax Act, look at what this government has done. And we have spoken about the facilities fees so many times, the CXC fees, the vouchers, the school support, the CDP programs, road projects which have started in some communities. But not only that, do you believe that the initiative by the Minister for Education and the Ministry of Education to put your uniform, and thousands of St. Lucians have the, you think that is just a uniform thing? Think about it. It's about the economy too. How many new shirts? I don't know, for the member for Castries office, he had to make a new shirt. He had to go to a seamstress. Right? If you have to make a preschool shirt or a primary school shirt, I can't go to the primary school to get a shirt my size. I have to go to the seamstress, either Sonny at Bellevue or Miss Lucia at Piero, and they can sew my school shirt. I'm going to pay them. Multiply that by thousands of people. I saw people on Facebook. This was wonderful. So in addition to the consciousness of the country, raising the consciousness and mobilizing the community, in every community you had our seamstresses making $1, our tailors making $1. So our policies are not just, it's not just economic growth. Yes, economic growth, but there must be, we must have policies and strategies to have equity in the society. Look at it, the emancipation activities. Look at, and I can imagine next year what will happen. Because everybody will want a new dress for emancipation, a new leather sandal. So you can imagine the young men in Castries and Vieux-Fort who make leather sandals and so on. When you tie all these things, look at Laos and Marguerite. We have a new approach to these things. I can imagine next year for Laros and Margaret, people selling ornamentals and flowers and roses and so on, and the farmers making money. Everybody involved in it. So this is very different to the strategies of the past Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Miku South. Very different. What did you hear in the last government? When they talk about taxes, they talk about reducing VAT, but we know the impact of that. We know who got the major benefits in that VAT reduction. We know. It was not the majority of the people. It was not the majority of the people. The prices did not go down at the supermarkets. So we know the impacts of their policies. We saw what they did with DSH. And we know the impacts of that. You heard the Member of Parliament for Beaufort South and the farmers. We have not even spoken about the meat processing plant and all of the equipment and the big machines and the saws and all of these things. I wonder where these things went to. $21 million. $21 million. The impact of their policies. And we know about all of the FFFs. We know about that. And we know about what happened in St. Jude. They did not put the people first. They put horses before the people. So that's their record, which is different to our record. So this income tax amendment, Mr. Speaker, as I said before, is part of a bigger picture of bringing the people relief. I heard the member of Beaufort South said it. The gas, the bakeries, the flour, working with everybody in difficult times to give everybody something so that we can bear the brunt of the difficulties that we have now, and setting up the economy so that we can grow and prosper. Look at tourism. Look at the investments that are coming in tourism. And not only that, the minister came to the house and said to us, we are growing tourism, but everybody must benefit. So we have the community tourism law, which will cause every community to be able to take. So you see how we're reorganizing the thing? So we go into the structure of the economy, the basic fundamentals, and we are reorganizing it. Look at what the Minister for Agriculture, who found a growing CMOS industry, and we are giving them more support. I just saw pictures of the refurbished CMOS plant at Prairie. I saw pictures of that over the weekend. Wonderful, beautiful, HACCP certified and everything. Or is it being certified as we speak? So we are rearranging the fundamentals to cause there to be sustained growth. You have not heard in this government we gave this to that person overseas and that to that person over there. Our people are in it. And as I said before, migrant emancipation, all of the areas are in it. So, Mr. Speaker, this is just the beginning of inclusive growth. Just the beginning. And every department, every minister, and the Minister for Finance, you see his style is different. Never will he call somebody jackass. Never. Everybody come on board and let us grow the economy together. Let me help you, and everybody will benefit. So I support this amendment, Mr. Speaker, because I know the people of Beaufort North will benefit. Ek masa ferme si ma di ki, sa nou ka fe jodi a, Mr. Speaker, se nou ka chanje loi income tax la. Ek sa nou ka di a se, nou ka chanje pour si ou ka fe $2,000 ou ben mwes, ou pa kay paye tax. Lani 14,000 moun ki kay plime. Lani adan moun ki kay paye complete tax. Comme moun kon nou au parlement, nou kay paye titak pre-tax, mais lani 14,000 moun en Saint-Lucie qui pa kay paye tax. Pour qui ça c'est important? C'est important parce que si vous pris l'argent en poche ou bon on aller la caillou avec plus l'argent, ou quand ça dépenser plus l'argent. Ou quand ça servir l'argent pour gagner livre maman à l'école ou bien payer oui meubles, ou bien on prend l'argent pour dépenser en petite place à Beaufort North avec l'autre place en pays. So ça me dit à Mr. Speaker c'est manière ministre finance ça là kaopowi. Il est différent manière l'autre ministre finance santé kaopowi. Là il était parlé en budget première fois ça c'est membre parlement Mikou Soud, il dit un chay bagay. Il dit la gagne 200 000 chambres hôtel. Il dit la gagne DSH. Et pour chaque cheval, la gagne 4 moun qui travaillent. Il dit un chay bagay. Il dit la gagne sabouicha. Il dit yo gagne tirer vac nettement. Toute qualité pour mettre il fait. Mais aujourd'hui il a venu dire premier ministre là qui a fait pour mettre il passe à chaîne. Alors nous pour faire moun changer ce bail ça, monsieur speaker. Avec dernièrement, ça me dit à ce gouvernement ça quand on peut différent. En toute bagaille nous qu'a fait, nous qu'a peuple pays cette Lucia dedans. Avec nous faire petit bagaille monsieur ministre de l'éducation, faire petit bagaille avec l'école uniforme l'école, tout le monde tout partout aller, mais là il y a un l'autre bénéfice. Tout le monde qui allait faire un uniforme ou aller à Coutiouez qui fait on y pour payer Coutiouez ça là, so moun fait l'argent et ça bon. Moun aller à l'école yo, comme ça a mené sagesse, ça a mené richesse qualité avec respect. Si vous regardez manière nous faire émancipation, tout le monde est évolué. Et nous regardons pour l'autre année, pour plus de monde évoluer. Ce gouvernement ça, Mr. Speaker, c'est un gouvernement pour tout le monde. Avec le Premier ministre qui a caché tout partout, tout petit coin, côté il a fait un bagage pour aider les gens. Il peut se gaz pour chaîne pour en cette manière parce que l'année là j'ai puis l'huile qui a monté. Ou bien il peut se bécar pour chaîne pour pain. Tout partout tourner ou quand qui Premier ministre là qui a essayé de faire un bagage pour changer situation à de manière qu'on nous a vivre avec qu'on nous a fait économie fait plus progrès. Comme ça, comme même parlement vivre pour nous, mais qu'à supporter changement ça là. Plus de monde qui a un bénéfice, 14 000 personnes avec il y a des économies développées. Merci, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sat and I listened to the member from Mico South. And I also recall that a member for Vieux-Fort South, he said that we discuss religion and religious things. So what came to my mind was Luke chapter 6:45. And I'll tell you what it says, Mr. Speaker. It says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And that's what was happening to the member from Mico South. He said something that was telling, Mr. Speaker. He said, they are there pretending to be in government. That was telling. Out of the abundance of the mouth, the heart, the mouth speaks. He said they are there pretending to be in government. Mr. Speaker, up to this day, the 10th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2022, 11th day of October in the year of our Lord, 2022, the member for Mico South and surrogates have not understood that the people of St. Lucia have rejected them, Mr. Speaker. It is surrogate, but it is a member of parliament. I'm not a member. The member for Choiseul is a member of parliament. I'm speaking about the surrogates. They have not understood, Mr. Speaker, that the people of St. Lucia reject. And he said further, he said, and some people believe them. It's not some people that believe them, is the majority of people believed us. Not some, it's the majority, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, so this is why there's that hate and that anger and that remorse and that call for revenge, Mr. Speaker. Because the member from Mico South has not understood, like we understood, that the people of St. Lucia can make their choice. We are in a democracy, Mr. Speaker, and the people have made the choice. So, Mr. Speaker, he said that we are pretending to be in government. Mr. Speaker, I could spend the entire afternoon debunking every word that the member from Microsoft says. And I said, when I was in opposition, I said to the public of St. Lucia, listen carefully to what the member says. Listen carefully. He says it with an accent that may fool you, but listen carefully to his words and analyze it, Mr. Speaker, and you will see what happens. The member for Microsoft, he said that St. Lucia, we inherited an economy that was looking good, that was looking well, even after COVID, and we made a mess of it. We have no plans, and the country is worse off, and the country is in economic decline. He said a whole sort of thing, Mr. Speaker. But the ECLAC review said that the country is poised for 6.5% growth. But the member for Microsoft said to his friends that a few people, a member for Cashew South and myself, we forged the figures. I don't know how we could forge these figures, Mr. Speaker. That is the delusion that is going forward, Mr. Speaker. He also said that St. Lucia is doing fine, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, COVID hit every nation, every island in the world. St. Lucia's decline was 26%. It was the third or fourth largest decline in the world after COVID. And these are verifiable facts, Mr. Speaker. What caused that decline? If you manage an economy, nobody created COVID. COVID affected the whole world. Why was St. Lucia's decline 26% when you say you're managing the best economy in the world, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, the member for Microsoft, he said nothing is happening. Recall, Mr. Speaker, what investment was there in St. Lucia between the years 2016 and 2021? We were promised 7 new hotels, Pearl of the Caribbean, not one. But you managed the economy so well. You are this guru. Everybody, where is the tangible evidence of that investment? Where is the tangible evidence of that growth, Mr. Speaker? July 2021, the government changed. By January 2022, a hotel was physically being built in the country. It wasn't said in a budget speech. If you leave, you will see a hotel physically. You will see tangible signs of investment, Mr. Speaker, between July 2021 and now. Tangible signs of investment. Let the member from Microsoft go out and point where is the tangible signs of investment that he knows so much about, and he knows so much about managing that economy, Mr. Speaker. Where is it? Where is the evidence, apart from in his mind and the minds and the pens and in the pens of some of his surrogates? Where is the evidence? He says, Mr. Speaker, that we are jokers because he lumps me, the member for Vieux-Fort North, and says we said we cannot build roads in rain. But Mr. Speaker, that is what put him where he is. The entire construction industry knows that during the months of October, November, December, the traditional rainy season before climate change, you do not have any major construction during these months because rain falls, Mr. Speaker. That is nothing new. That is a fact. But he hastens to add that it's because we are so inept that that the roads in the country are that bad, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we had to stop road construction because we do not want to take the people's money and throw it away. We had to stop road construction in the country because out of our knowledge that the rain would have been so fierce Why do you think we could take good money and throw it away in water just to please the member from Microsoft, Mr. Speaker? So, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to say it again. The road construction in this country will recommence after the onset of the rainy season. In the meantime, what you're going to do is you're going to get involved in mitigation. The landslides, we're going to clear the landslides, we're going to clear the drains, we're going to get involved in mitigation, and hopefully when we get a break from the rain, we will recommence road construction. The people in my constituency in Castries East, we started some road construction there. I want to ask them for their patience, the people in Castries South, the people in Labrie, and we have to ask them for some patience because we are not going to be continuing road construction in this weather. It's folly, it borders on stupidity, and it's a waste of the taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the member says that we have done nothing to cushion the cost of living. But it's that same member went on television and he said to the government on social media, do something about electricity charges, reduce the VAT on electricity. Now, when he said so, the other surrogates repeated, remove the VAT electricity, remove the VAT. So when I heard so, sometimes when you hear things, you wonder if, when people say things about you, or when people lie on you, you want to reconsider, did I really do that? So I checked. I think I called somebody. I think I must have called a member for before Solve, I think. And I asked him, is there VAT on electricity? Remember that? I must have called you. I said, Chief, is there VAT on electricity? Because I could not believe that a member from Microsoft, a former prime minister, would have gone on social media and tell the entire world that the means of correcting what's happening in the cost of goods and services is to remove VAT on electricity when there is no VAT on electricity. Yeah, it's the same way, Mr. Speaker, same way on social media. The government is borrowing $250 million today. Big splash on social media, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker, not understanding that we are not pretending to be in government, that we are in government. That is what he doesn't understand, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's talk a little bit about the income tax bill that we debated, we spoke about, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've said that things must be verified. We must verify by facts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, previously the deductions were $18,000. And I agree with the member for Beaufort South. We have to be a little more, we have to be a little braver when it comes to taxation. But as he rightly said, when you see the coffers and you see what they left you, you get very cautious, Mr. Speaker. $18,000 deduction. Let me tell you the people that would benefit. $18,000 deduction, Mr. Speaker. That means in the civil service, the grades 1 and 2 would benefit, Mr. Speaker. Grades 1 and 2 would benefit. $18,000. Now, what people are in that grade, Mr. Speaker? People who work at a senior citizens home, cook, domestic assistants, groundmen, handymen, kitchen, laundress, medical records clerk, storeroom attendant, vote, grades 1 and 2, ambulance driver, assistant caretaker, band apprentice, customs guard 1, driver 1, receptionist 1. These people, a lot of them in grade 2. These people got $18,000 or less and they paid no tax. We've expanded it, so now people in up to grade 4 will pay no tax, Mr. Speaker. Who is in grade 4? Recruits, police, fire and prisons, statistical clerk, student pharmacist, postman driver, pupil nursing assistant, accounts clerk 1, apprentice draftsman, apprentice environmental health officer, apprentice printer, apprentice physiotherapist, assistant teacher, assistant storekeeper, band cadet, audit clerk 1, driver 2, forensic assistant 1, mental health aide, licensing clerk, postal officer 1, grade 4. These are the people who get less than $24,000 a month. Accounts clerk 2, assistant customs officer 2, audit clerk, forest assistant, cytology technician, nursery assistant, pharmacist technician, teacher 2, statistical clerk, student nurse. All these people, Mr. Speaker, get less than $24,000 a month. These people will pay no tax. That totals about, in the civil service, about 2,000 people will pay no tax. But the member from Microsoft says that is not for you, must give them jobs. We'll talk about this job record in a while. All these people will pay no tax, Mr. Speaker. All these people. And again, Mr. Speaker, verifiable if you look in the estimates of expenditure and you go to pages 704, 705, 703, 702, you will see, and you go to the back on page 710, you will see from grades 1 to 4 that the maximum salary, the minimum on the scale is $23,965. They pay no taxation from the 1st of January. That is clear in the budget. They pay no taxation. But Mr. Speaker, we go further because it has a multiplier effect. Let us go to the other grades. Grade 5. And who is in grade 5, Mr. Speaker? Grade 5, you have people like law clerk 3, police constable 1, tax officer 1, resident educator secretary 1, senior operator, law clerk 3, human resource development assistant. This is about in grade 5, Mr. Speaker. Assistant customs officer, assistant economist, audit clerk 3, court interpreter, customs officer 1, fireman, firewoman, forensic assistant. All these people are in grade 5, Mr. Speaker. These people, their income is, if they are at the minimum on the scale, their income is grade 5, their income is $27,000. That means they will pay tax on $9,000. Now, because of the increase in allowance, they're going to pay tax on 25 minus 27. They'll pay tax on $2,000. Even just without allowances. Without allowances, they'll pay tax on $9,000. Now, with allowances, they pay tax only on $2,000. Let's go further, Mr. Speaker. Grade 6, police constable 2. Electrician 2, forest officer 1, ICT research assistant, laundry manager, mechanic 2, process server secretary 2, electrician 2. These people are at grade 6, Mr. Speaker. Their salary minimum of the scale $31,000 a year. Under the old regime, they would have paid tax before allowances on $13,000. Under that new regime, they pay tax before allowances on $7,000. But the member for Microsoft doesn't understand that. Doesn't understand it. If you go to grade 7, Mr. Speaker, you have tax inspector, senior constable. I didn't even know there was senior constable. Senior constable, forest officer 2, ICT technician, insurance officer, laboratory assistant, leading fireman, legal assistant, nursing assistant, secretary 3. These people are in grade 7. At the minimum of the scale, their salary is $36,000. Under the old regime, minimum of the scale. Under the old regime, they would pay tax on $8,000. Under that new regime, they pay tax on $11,000. And Mr. Speaker, and we can go on and on. But it's important, Mr. that I take time to outline these things because of the misinformation that is happening in this country. I want you to be patient, Mr. Speaker. I want to outline it. Let's go to grade 7, Mr. Speaker. Assistant economist 2, Assistant Financial Regulator, Audit Assistant 1, Cadet 2, Complaints and Investigation Assistance, Correctional Officer 2. I'm just mentioning these main one: assistant economist, assistant budget analyst, assistant accountant. These people, Mr. Speaker, they are grade 7. At the minimum of their scale, they get $36,000 a year. Under the old regime, they pay tax on $18,000. Under the new regime, they pay tax now on the $11,000. Up the scale, Mr. Speaker, and you go. Let's jump and go to grade 10. Because, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to bore you. Mr. Speaker, is important because we read these things on Facebook, we hear these things on the radio, we hear these things. People just say whatever they want, and it passes as fact, Mr. Speaker. Let me take you to grade 10. What do you have in grade 10? In grade 10, you have Administrative Secretary, Assistant Chief Security Officer, Crown Lands Officer, Dental Hygienist, Driving Inspector, Engineering Assistant 2, Employment Officer 3, Forest Officer 4, Hospital Maintenance, House Mother, Human Resource Development, Information Assistant, Inspection Officer, Instructor, Librarian 1, Labor Officer 2, Physiotherapist, Private Secretary, Senior Executive Officer. These people, Mr. Speaker, these people are in grade 10. Grade 10. At the top of their scale, at the minimum of their scale, their salary is 40. They pay tax on $30,000. Under that new regime, they pay tax on $25,000 for allowances. Mr. Speaker, that is the far-reaching nature of the basic increase of the allowance from 18,000 to 25,000, Mr. Speaker. That means, Mr. Speaker, that means, Mr. Speaker, that out of the labor force, Mr. Speaker, according to Social and Economic Review, the labor force in St. Lucia, and I turn on to page 121, and that is what the member for Microsoft cannot do. He can just talk his words or talk what he says in his mouth, but he cannot prove it a fact, Mr. Speaker. The labor force Mr. Speaker, was in 2021 101. Listen to that, Mr. Listen to that. Let me talk about unemployment. And the figures don't lie, Mr. Speaker. In 2016, the labor force was 104,000 people. In 2017, it went down to 102,000 people. In 2018, it remained that, in fact, it went down. It was 102,364 in 2017. It became 102,005 in 2018. That means it went down. In 2019, it was 100,976. So when he talks about unemployment decreasing, look at the labor force. In 2020, the labor force is 95,000 in 2020. And in 2021, as usual, labor and power, it went up to 101,000. So, Mr. Speaker, when he speaks about reduction in unemployment, and he comes and talks about jobs, Mr. Speaker, and that's why he's where he is today. The facts, because Mr. Speaker, you can say to your surrogates whatever they want, and they repeat, but the facts do not lie. The labor force, between the time that he took it, has been decreasing. Between 2016, the labor force has been decreasing, and for this year, it was 101,000, the highest since 2016 when he got it. So if the labor force is higher, the unemployment rate percentage must be lower. You see, these are the things that they say, and just repeat, Mr. Speaker. These are the things that they say and they repeat. So the fact is, Mr. Speaker, all that talk about creating jobs has not worked with the policies of the United Workers' Party. Because you have 6,000 less people in the labor force between when he took it and where it is now. So, Mr. Speaker, it shows you 2020, 95,000. 2026, 104,000. The labor force has been constantly decreasing, and it went up now in 100 to 101 in 2021, and the census will say what? We'll see. I don't know what it will say. Yeah, page 121. That's not a fact? What? So what COVID did? COVID was in 2019. I talk about the labor force, not unemployment, I said labor force. No, the labor force is the people who are available to work. Yes, I did something. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the fact that you understand, that you ask. No problem. The labor force, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when he speaks about, is the flashing mirrors, Mr. Speaker, that's what caused the problem. So you see, we have said to you that this unemployment thing and this jobs thing that he's speaking about is not true. It doesn't manifest itself in the literature. In the literature, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, jobs. You know what it calls jobs, Mr. Speaker? Community tourism. You know what it calls jobs? The small business loans, the small business incentive that we do. You know what they call jobs? The youth economy. That's what they call real jobs. But so his job theory hasn't worked, because as it has said clearly, the only hotel he attempted to build in St. Lucia, he had to pay the developer $20 million for it. And we started it. And he had to pay the developer $20 million. And Mr. Speaker, the member of Microsoft says that when are we going to give out the information? But I learned from him, Mr. Speaker, tanto. Say it at the right time and do it at the right time, Mr. Speaker. Say it at the right time, do it at the right time. That's what I learned. Tanto, wait. The hour has not cometh. Lockbox, Mr. Speaker. He speaks about roads and things, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, this member, when he was here, he came and he said that there was a lockbox and they would take money from the fuel tax and put in the lockbox to build roads. We went to the Ministry of Finance, and I remember sitting here and saying to him, where is the lockbox? All he had to say was the money goes into the consolidated fund. But if it's arrogance and petulance, he doesn't want to say that because he's a big man. He doesn't want to stoop to these little boys across here. The little boys he used to laugh at and say to them that, listen to me, gentlemen, it's not in a lockbox, it's the consolidated fund. We don't understand. Mr. Speaker, but that tax on fuel has decreased so much. We still have to get the money to pay the loans. And there is no lockbox, and that money in the consolidated fund is used for general government services. So he never put a cent aside anywhere to build any road. From since he began to collect the money, he put it straight into the consolidated fund for government, for general services. That's why the Deputy Prime Minister had to tell you, he looked for the lockbox and he couldn't find it, Mr. Speaker. These are the things that this member from Microsoft has gotten away with, or has tried to gotten away with. Me Jubawe. What's it, Dr. Boyd? Laline Koui Jubawe. Éclair Jubawe, il y a eu Jean cette ici. Jubawe, because this bluff and this talk and this glibness on social media and these half-truths and these innuendos came to an end, Mr. Speaker. The people of St. Lucia realize that these things are not true. So what are the benefits, Mr. Speaker, from this tax amendment? 14,000 people will pay less tax. 14,000 filers. Now there's a difference between filers and people who are employed. Because not everybody files tax. 14,000 people file tax. And Mr. Speaker, in every tax system, And the member for Viewfort South made the point. The new Prime Minister of England, Elizabeth Truss is her name, she cut the wealth tax by 45 pence for the richest of the rich. And they revolted on her. I'm sorry, she had to use that chancellor to do that job. They revolted on her, the rich of the rich, and she had to back up, say she's not implementing it, but instead she had to increase mortgage rates. The richest of the rich, Mr. Speaker. Every tax system, it has to cause those who earn more to contribute a little more. So this is what, and in that calculation, Mr. Speaker, in that calculation, that option, only 600 people will pay more tax, and 14,000 people will pay less taxes. You see anything wrong in that system, Mr. Speaker? Do you see anything wrong in that incremental change, Mr. Speaker? But this is what the leader of the opposition doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that his supply side economics does not work, Mr. Speaker. That you must give the people, the less fortunate, you must give them a helping hand. You must create opportunity for them, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, in the last posting, they said, I wanted St. Jude to be like Marchand. Mr. Speaker, that is how they denigrate the people of St. Lucia. That's how they denigrate them, Mr. Speaker. But in spite of all that, Mr. Speaker, this government is pushing on to fundamentally transform the economy of St. Lucia, to deal with the issues and the problems that we have. We borrowed $302 million for COVID. $302 million for COVID at a concessionary rates for COVID, Mr. Speaker. Still for that, we had to give income support from the NIC contributions of people. We had income support. What did we do with the $300 million that we borrowed? It ought to be for income support, and we have debt, Mr. Speaker. We got debt. We couldn't pay for isolation facilities. We have the vaccine thing that to speak about. We still have to pay people for that kept people in quarantine. We still have medicines to pay. Our Victoria Hospital was in a mess. The respiratory hospital was in a mess. But we borrowed $202 million. Other countries borrowed money also, but not in the mess that we find ourselves. And we found ourselves, Mr. Speaker. 26% decline. That's what we inherited. 26% decline. Not one new investment. And the most of it was the revenue stream that was eroded by the reduction of VAT, Mr. Speaker. But still for that, we have been able to have interventions that will improve the quality of life of the people of St. Lucia. So looking forward, Mr. Speaker, we have to look at our revenue streams and see how we are handling that economy. But in the meantime, we have to create the environment through community tourism, for the youth economy, for increasing the small business, the small and medium-sized enterprises, and seeing about the vulnerable by improving the people on the poverty list, expanding the list. But at the same time, once you do that, we are graduating people out of poverty. So we don't keep them there. The Ministry of Equity has a program where you graduate people out of poverty. But in the meantime, you cannot call them lazy and call them barking dogs and leave them in the situation and call them medicants. You have to help them and let them graduate out of that. And that is what the government is doing, Mr. Speaker. Understanding, you must always, it's no use you try to forget your history. And I saw somebody wrote in a newspaper that I always say, I'm a little black boy from Waterworks Road. I'm proud, Mr. Speaker, of being this little black boy from Waterworks Road. Very proud of it. And I'll continue to say it. And I'll continue to tell people like me that they must aspire to become the Prime Minister. So, do not think that you are denigrating me, or you're trying to say I'm an underperformer because I say that. I repeat it, Mr. Speaker. I repeat it because I'm proud of it. I'm not afraid of my past, and I'm confident of my future, Mr. Speaker. That's the difference. have nothing to be ashamed of, Mr. Speaker. And I, together with the men and women on this side, Mr. Speaker, will transform this country. We have to have a new country, Mr. Speaker, by the time we leave government. We have to transform, Mr. Speaker. A country that is free of corruption. A country where every man has an opportunity to improve the quality of his life. A country that will not determine where you are because of who you are. A country that will not be riddled by crime because of inequality, Mr. Speaker. A country of equity, a country where we'll try to create an environment for everybody. And every little boy and girl in this country must understand that they can aspire to get the highest position. Being the Prime Minister is not the prerequisite of any man, regardless of who you think he is. And the people give and the people take. When the people take, you must accept the people have taken and move on, Mr. Speaker. And that is the difference between us and them. So, Mr. Speaker, this income tax amendment is just one small move in the transformation of the economic landscape of this country. I look forward, I said on Sunday, Mr. Speaker, the improvements in the Tourism Incentives Act. We have to create, in a sense, that to widen the scope so more solutions can benefit from tourism incentives, Mr. Speaker. That is what we're doing. That's what we're doing, not only hotels. And that started the Boston government when we gave taxi drivers incentives. Again, to spread it, we gave taxi drivers incentives, and then the work we did as far as vendors are concerned, Mr. Speaker. You understand? Because we believe fundamentally that everybody must benefit from the tourism cake, and this minister will ensure that happens, Mr. Speaker. So we're very excited, Mr. Speaker, on the way forward. It's going to be very, very tough, Mr. Speaker. We have some novel things we have to do. We have to look at a sovereign wealth fund. We have to look at some novel things, Mr. Speaker, because you can't have an economy where you borrow, and you do not save. So the sovereign wealth fund is a means that will help us save, Mr. Speaker. We have to look at new energy legislation so we can again save on the cost of energy, what we pay in our hospitals, what we pay in our government buildings, what we pay in our schools. That is means of savings. We have to look at rental of buildings. We have to rationalize rental of buildings. And remember, for View for South made a good point. We have acres of building of rental space in Balouange. Acres of space. We are going to come to Parliament with that agreement for people to see what's there. Because we don't know. Acres of space, Mr. Speaker. And we're still renting, building, Mr. Speaker. We have to rationalize that, where we have to try to see if we can create some savings, Mr. Speaker. We're looking at the street lights program that the minister spoke of to again save. We spend $9 million paying electricity bills for street lamps every year. We can save that. And as the minister said, if it was not for the act of the will of political retribution, we'd have had all the license in Lucia transformed to sodium lights. But political retribution, he started it, so we stop it. And Mr. Speaker, that hurts, Mr. Speaker, when you see how this country could have been transformed. The Grocery Highway started 6th of June. Was supposed to be the opening of the contract of the tenders for the secondary roads. They refused. They did not mean 6th of June was elections, and they abandoned it, Mr. Speaker. They abandoned it. And now you talk about rain and roads. So, Mr. Speaker, I will end now by telling you that the income tax amendment, Mr. Speaker, bill will benefit many people. It will benefit 14,000 people directly, Mr. Speaker, and it will also benefit people indirectly, Mr. Speaker. So it is one small step in the transformation of the fiscal landscape of the country, where tax policy, Mr. Speaker, will have to be thoroughly reviewed so that we can see whether we can get some revenue, Mr. Speaker, so that we don't have to borrow and borrow and borrow. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, the question is that the Income Tax Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Income Tax Act, Cap 15.02.
Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Amendment of Section 44.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Amendment of Section 54.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Amendment of Section 58.
Clause 5 stands part of the bill. Clause 6.
Amendment of Schedule 5.
Clause 6 stands part of the bill. Clause 7.
Amendment of Schedule 6.
Clause 7 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Honourable members, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. And now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. Ayes have it. Honourable members, I beg to report that the Income Tax Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendments. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the Income Tax Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the King's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same, as follows. This Act may be cited as the Income Tax Amendment Act 2022.
Prime Minister.
I beg to present for second reading a bill shortly entitled Security Interest in Movable Property. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this bill started its birth in 2014, Mr. Speaker. In 2014, we started the process of consultation for the security interest in movable bill. Again, Mr. Speaker, basically to create a more level playing field for small business, a more level playing field for less established business, Mr. Speaker, so that these discussions started in 2014, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the purpose, and it was further repeated, Mr. Speaker, in the budget speech, where I said, Mr. Speaker, that this bill will allow for the use of movable assets to secure loan financing. And this is the crux of the matter. Movable assets to secure loan financing. This is the real object and purpose of the bill, that you can use movable assets to secure loan financing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill will provide a modern secure transaction system that will enable small and micro enterprises to access financing using their movable assets and properties in a manner that was not facilitated before. Mr. Speaker, this means that if you have a small business, you can use your accounts receivable, you can use your inventory, you can etc. as assets, Mr. Speaker. Let me give you examples, Mr. Speaker, of things that you can use as assets because of the passage of this bill, Mr. Speaker. Before, the only thing that you could have used as an asset was property, real property. These are the only things you could use, Mr. Speaker. But not all businesses have access to real property, or not all businesses have real property, Mr. Speaker. So what this bill will do is this bill will allow you to be able to use certain assets, Mr. Speaker, certain assets as security. Let me give you an example, Mr. Speaker, of what assets that you can use as security or because of the passage of this bill. You can use, Mr. Speaker, accounts receivable. If somebody owes you money, you can use it as an asset. Inventory and raw goods, industrial and agricultural equipment, agricultural products, very important for the Ministry of Agriculture. You can use your crops and your livestock as security because of this bill. Bank accounts, intellectual property rights, durable consumer goods and vehicles, Mr. Speaker. All these can be used as security because to secure finance, Mr. Speaker. That will cause increased access to credit for all sectors. But what's important is there must be an online registry that has to be instituted. And this is the next step. The creation of an online registry. What? Yeah, and I've just been told that the online registry is being created as we speak, Mr. Speaker. You have to have an online registry so the business can register these assets in the registry and it can be onward use as assets, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this means that St. Lucia's existing legal framework will have to be replaced by a comprehensive and integrated framework that treats all kinds of interest in movables on equal terms. And that has to come through in a new legal framework which the Attorney General's office will have to implement, Mr. Speaker, so that we can get, this is just the first stage, Mr. Speaker. So you have to have legislation for the online collateral registry, which is being formed, and the next step would be the laws to make that registry functional, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill is expected to replace the bill of sale legislation, and it therefore negate the need for stamp duty at $5 per filing. Financial institutions and other users will be able to file online and hence pay the required fee online. Therefore, the need for physical filing will not be necessary when the online registry comes into being. Mr. Speaker, since the bill is passed now, there's going to be, the new legal framework has to be set up, the registry has to be set up, and the education and training of lenders, attorneys, and registry professionals have to be done. So that will take some time, and we are calculating that the registry and the enabling law will be online and begin to function in about 12 to 18 months, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this legislation means that there's a complete revolution in the way business is done in St. Lucia. a complete revolution, Mr. Speaker. And that revolution will open a new gateway for small businesses, a new gateway for medium-sized enterprises, a new gateway where they'll be able to use these movable assets to secure finance to expand and increase their operations, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the bill speaks to the purpose of the bill, Mr. Speaker, is to provide for the use of movable property as collateral for credits. The creation of a security interest in movable property and third-party effectiveness of a security interest. The registration of a security interest in movable property and for the establishment of an online register of security interest in movable property. The rules for determining the priority of a security interest as against competing claims, the rights and obligations of a guarantor, secured creditor, and a third-party obligor, the enforcement of a security interest, and applicable laws. That is the purpose of the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Part 1 of the bill, creation of a security interest, provides for making a security interest. Clause 5 and 6 of the bill, a security interest can be created. The obligations that make be secured and the movable property that may be encumbered are provided for in Clause 7, 8, and 9 of the bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so what this bill does, and I will not go into detail, Mr. Speaker, because it was circulated a long time ago for other members to read. What it does, Mr. Speaker, it creates creation of a security interest, Mr. Speaker. And a security interest can be any of the things that I mentioned before. Accounts receivable, tools and equipment, agricultural produce, any of them can be a security interest, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it also means that, as I said, there must be the establishment of a registrar of security interests. Also, Mr. Speaker, the registrar will ensure that the priority of a security interest as against competing claims. So that will be laid out properly, the registration, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is really new, very new legislation, and it will take time for people to understand it, and it takes time for it to be the work. So we need to have a serious education. The Ministry of Commerce will have to have a serious education outreach on how that bill can assist small business and assist medium-sized enterprises, because they will now be able to secure credit using these assets, but it will have there will be a certain process, a certain procedure which they have to follow, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of increasing small business growth, I think this bill is commendable. There has been discussion, Mr. Speaker. There has been discussion of the bill. The bill went to the Bar Association in February 2022. It went to the Bar Association, and there will be further discussion on the electronic register, etc., so that we can, as I said, the bill will replace the stamp duty act, Mr. Speaker. The Bill of Sale Act. It will replace the Bill of Sale Act, Mr. Speaker. So I think our members have read it, and I commend it for the support of this honorable House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the security interest in movable property bill be read a second time. Member for Castries South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, I want to stand in support of this bill. I think the Prime Minister, in summary, indicated and explained what this bill is about. And I think we just need to highlight the significance of this bill and what this will do for small business development in St. Lucia. It is a very powerful piece of legislation that's been passed today. Very, very powerful, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whereas, and the Prime Minister indicated, in the past you would have had to have property, whether it is land, house, whether you had cash to use as security, small businesses now have an opportunity to actually use their assets. It might be a restaurant owner who wants a loan. Of course, they can register all the assets of the restaurant, the stoves, the fridge, and everything else, and to use that as security to get a loan. For the tourism sector, the small local investors in the tourism sector, this is a very powerful tool, Mr. Speaker. The boat owner who wants a loan to buy a second boat can use the boat that he has as a security, Mr. Speaker. And if you just think about it, throughout St. Lucia, small business persons, medium-sized business persons that do not have any, immovable property, Mr. Speaker, land, houses, they can now use many other forms of security. And the Prime Minister made mention of trade receivables, that you have a contract with somebody to do X, Y, and Z for which there is a guaranteed payment. You can use that as a security. And agricultural produce, Mr. Speaker, there's so many new, call it possessions or assets that can be used as security to get a loan. And if you think about what that means for the ordinary person in St. Lucia, the seamstress that has 4 machines, sewing machines, can now use those machines as security to get a loan. That never existed before, but it can now, Mr. Speaker. And I think in many ways we must not underestimate the empowerment that will give to ordinary St. Lucians. So it's not only the big fish now that will be able to get resources to invest. Ordinary people for this will now be able to get the security necessary to get loans. And I can say to you, Mr. Speaker, that today there's actually a test taking place on the platform that will be used for the register, Mr. Speaker, under the OECS Tourism Competitiveness Project. About 1.5 million EC dollars has been put aside to pay for the consultancy and to pay for the establishment of the registry that would bring this into effect, Mr. Speaker. And whoever it is that came up with the need, the identifiable need to secure the funding for this project, I think should be commended, Mr. Speaker. I know the ORTCP has a long life, Mr. Speaker, of where it originated. I know it was formally launched in early 2018 in St. Lucia when the World Bank finalized all the arrangements for it. But I think it started off from under Dr. Anthony's time when he was Prime Minister. I cannot tell you exactly how the provision for the collateral registry, the registry that was spoken of by the member of Acacius East was actually brought in to the proposals under that project. But I must say to you, Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to all small business persons in St. Lucia, all persons who want to invest but don't have the backer and have all the big resources and assets to do so, to learn about the opportunities that are created by this piece of legislation that we are passing today. I hope there can be proper dialogue with the banks and other financial institutions so they too come on board and they understand how this can transform. And I think the member from Beaufort North earlier on, in his presentation really spoke about what one can call almost the democratization of the economy in St. Lucia, where ordinary persons can now get more space. And he spoke of the community tourism and the grants that will be provided by the Ministry of Commerce, Mr. Speaker. All those things will create more space for people in St. Lucia to start benefiting from growth. And he was very right in what he said. You must have all-inclusive growth. You cannot have growth without development, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, the greater part of the benefit from the growth would be restricted to a few. And we really want growth, and you must have growth. The economy must grow. But in growing, we want there to be greater equity and for more people to benefit from it. And this piece of legislation will go a long way in so doing. So I wanted to join the member from Castries, he's the Prime Minister, and to lend my support to this piece of legislation and to strongly endorse it and ask all St. Lucians to fully understand the potential that that now offers to them. Those who want to get involved in entrepreneurship, those who want to create small businesses, this now presents them with a glorious opportunity to use assets that previously would not be allowed to be used as assets. And there's a whole long list of the economic value goods that can be used as assets, Mr. Speaker. But I wanted to stand and lend my support for this. Thank you very much.
The member for Suzelle Saltibus.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I will make a very brief contribution, albeit to support the bill. In fact, when I saw it on the order paper, I was convinced that it was something that had already come to Parliament, because I know there was so much discussion in the past. As the Prime Minister said, it started sometime in 2014, and I know there was extensive discussion under it, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually very, as a former banker, Mr. Speaker, knowing some of the challenges that we would have encountered with bills of sales, where sometimes actually you would have two financial institutions having the same item as security, because the system in the registry was so manual, and to go and sometimes search in terms of what was already registered was sometimes very tedious, Mr. Speaker. So the online registry is actually going to make this thing a lot more easily accessible, to be able to identify, what is actually being held as security by in various names, Mr. Speaker. So, as has been said by the previous speakers, the opening up of so many people who in the past would not have been eligible because they could not have provided land or other tangible means of security, now have that to be able to the inventory and a whole list of other items. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy that we're moving forward with it today, and I support this bill in totality. Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move second reading of a bill shortly entitled Security Interest in Movable Property. Is he still now? Yes, he's still.
Mr. Prime Minister, you caught me by surprise. That's not often the case. Honourable members, the question is that the security interest in movable property bill be read a second time. I now put the question: as many as of that opinion say aye. As many as the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to provide for the use of movable property as collateral for credit, the creation of a security interest in movable property and third-party effectiveness of a security interest, the establishment of an online register of security interest in movable property and for the registration of a security interest in movable property, the rules for determining priority of a security interest as against competing claimants, the rights and obligations of a guarantor, secured creditor and third-party obligor, the enforcement of a security interest, applicable laws, and for related matters.
The member for Susan agreed. Clause 2.
Interpretation.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 3.
Application and non-application of this act.
Clause 3 stands part of the bill. Clause 4.
Conflict of laws.
Clause 4 stands part of the bill. Clause 5.
Creation of a security.
Part 1, clauses 5 to 18.
Creation of a security interest.
Part 1, clauses 5 to 18 stands part of the bill. Part 2, clauses 19 to 28.
Third-party effectiveness of a security interest.
Part 2, clauses 19 to 28 stands part of the bill. Part 3, clauses 29 to 51.
Registration of a security interest in movable property.
Part 3, clauses 29 to 51 stands part of the bill. Part 4, clauses 52 to 71.
Priority of a security interest as against competing claimants.
Part 4, clauses 52 to 71 stand part of the bill. Part 5, clauses 72 to 89.
Rights and obligations of the grantor, secured creditor, and a third party.
Part 5, clauses 72 to 89 stands part of the bill. Part 6, clauses 90 to 102.
Enforcement of a security interest.
Clause 6, Part 6, clauses 90 to 102 stands part of the bill. Part 7, clauses 103 to 116.
Applicable law.
Part 7, clauses 103 to 116 stands part of the bill. Part 8, clauses 117 to 121.
Miscellaneous.
Part 8, clauses 117 to 121 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title and commencement.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Honourable members, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honourable members, I beg to report that the security interest in the movable property bill went through committee stage without amendments. Prime Minister.
Move to report that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time passed.
Honourable members, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the security interest in movable property bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the King's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This Act may be cited as the Security Interests in Movable Property Act 2022.
Prime Minister.
The Speaker, I beg to present for first reading a bill short entitled Virtual Assets Business.
Yes, somebody's going to move for the...
Virtual Asset Business Bill. Virtual Asset Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read at the next or subsequent sitting on this honorable House.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move, very historic, for the first reading of a bill shortly entitled Constitution of St. Lucia Amendment.
Constitution of St. Lucia Amendment.
This bill be read at the next or subsequent meeting of this honorable House.
Senior Minister and Minister for Infrastructure, Ports, Transport, Physical Development and Urban Renewal.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for first reading a bill shortly entitled Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill.
Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 48-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that Standing Order 48-2 be suspended in order to allow the Senior Minister and Minister for Infrastructure, Ports, Transport, Physical Development and Urban Renewal to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Please proceed, Senior Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move for second reading a bill shortly entitled Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill. Mr. Speaker, this is a rather simple amendment being requested, and it really relates to the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill, in which Section 28, which deals with issues, endorsement and renewal, calls for a driving test to be performed, a compulsory driving test. In that section, Section 6, it says, further to the provisions of subsection 2B, in the case of an application for renewal of a driver's license, submission to a driving test shall be compulsory for any applicant who is B, not less than 70 years of age and seeks the renewal of a driver's license entitling him or her to drive any vehicle other than a public service vehicle. Mr. Speaker, we've had quite a few of our older citizens who have been appealing for reconsideration of this section, which makes it compulsory at the age of 70 for a driving test. We believe that 70, yes, 70, 70, but we believe that by amending it to age 75, this will allow for greater acceptance and appetite on the part of the general motoring public. And for sure, Mr. Speaker, this administration has been in its campaign and even in government as we speak, we have been speaking about putting people first. And in that way, in many instances, it's about listening to the people, listening to the voices of the people, the masses, what they are saying, looking at our own experiences, what the statistics are saying to us, and taking decisions that are informed by science and statistics to allow us to conduct our business. In this case, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure if notwithstanding all of the road accidents that we have been having, many of those accidents are not committed by persons in the age of 65, 70, or even 75 years. Most times, persons, once they reach the age of 60, they're a lot more cautious, they drive with due diligence, and many cases you'd find that they're not the ones who commit the accidents on our streets, it's the younger ones. So we believe that by increasing the age from 70, which calls a compulsory test, increasing that age to 75, we believe it's fair enough to provide that kind of atmosphere to allow our elderly persons to go in and get the driver's licenses renewed without having to go through the exercise, the trauma of having to perform an exam or a test. So I move this, Mr. Speaker, and I seek the support of this House.
I don't know that there is any significance attached to the fact that it's the member for Vieux-Fort South who is the first respondent, but member of Vieux-Fort South, you are recognized.
That you shall find out, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise with alacrity to support this amendment to the legislation. There's a narrow point and there's a larger point, and I want to spend a few moments on both, one of which the member for Castries North has touched on. Again, we can jolt our memories back in time when this legislation was being presented for enactment the very first time. I don't know whether the member for Castries East will recall when this legislation reached the Cabinet for review, that without disclosing the business of Cabinet, I had raised my very serious concern about enacting such a law. In fact, I recall very well the precise point made by the member for Castries North. I said, well, you know, I am betting you that if you check the statistics of accidents in the country, most accidents would in fact have been caused by the younger generation. The ones in their 30s and the ones in their 40s, not the persons who had reached a threshold of the 50s and the 60s. And I really do believe that it would be an interesting thing to carry out a survey, and we really should be asking the traffic department, and I agree with the member for Castries North, to look at the data on this, to really look at those who are causing the accidents on our roads for other reasons as well, because we need to have more targeted messages to our drivers in terms of using the road responsibly and using the road carefully. Those of us who are in legal practice will of course understand the issue, because we from time to time have to represent persons who are caught in accidents of one kind or another. So that is a narrow point, and I really hope that we can get some statistics in due course so that these statistics can be properly analyzed. I mean, I even have my own theories as to what kinds of vehicles people drive these days that get into accidents. Because you see those who use the roads and who dart between traffic from one side of the road to the next, and who overtake in corners. As someone who goes up and down Vieux-Fort every week, I can tell you how often I see these things on that road from Vieux-Fort to Castries on a continuous basis. In fact, you quickly develop a view that there are particular vehicles on the road you have to watch out for. And when you see those vehicles, stay far and you know, maintain due respect. And yes, I won't comment on those vehicles for the time being for fear of being accused of discriminatory behavior, but I'm just saying these are the trends. So that's the narrow point. The wider point, Mr. Speaker, is this. Once in a budget presentation, I spoke a lot about the irritations that St. Lucians face on a regular basis. what are the things in this society that irritate people and cause unnecessary anger and complaint, etc. And I really do think it's worth our while to take a few moments and just ask citizens, what is irritating you? What are the things bothering you about this society and how we do things? And compile some of those things so that perhaps we can move in the direction of finding solutions to these matters to make life more pleasant and to rid the society of all these unnecessary irritations. Now, at the time I spoke of some things. For example, I spoke about a problem we have with Inland Revenue, with getting clearances to purchase property and to prepare deeds of sale. Then I spoke about the National Insurance Corporation that is fast becoming a monster. I spoke about that issue, two matters that we spoke about. Then, of course, there are the issues pertaining to Lucilec and the ability to harness or to get hold of electricity. These are irritations. And it seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that if we can begin to look at these irritations and get rid of these irritations, perhaps we can create a society where people feel far more committed, far more relaxed, a society in which we can minimize the anger. Now, this legislation involving the 70s, persons who have reached that magical age of 70, Mr. Speaker, is an irritation. It is a huge irritation. I mean, I don't know whether the Ministry of Transport is aware that there are people 90 years old who are driving on our roads. And I watch them on the roads, and so knowing full well, and I'm hoping I get there myself, I can make it to 90 and drive myself. I watch them and with amazement. But there are persons like that, and we can name them in their 80s. In fact, I don't see why we shouldn't increase this to 80. We have stopped at 75, but I guess we have to say, we have to give thanks to small mercies that it is at 75. But it was one of those other irritations in the society that really was unnecessary. And it is all tied up to that point that I've made repeatedly, that this society is becoming too bureaucratic, that we just invent bureaucracy to interfere with decision making all the time. I don't know what has happened to this country that we have developed this fascination for bureaucracy, that we're not searching for ways and means to see if we can minimize the pain, minimize the time. I mean, and the things we do, this morning, Mr. Speaker, and the member for Castries North again touched it. And I go back to this issue of this Daher building up at Badawash. I understand that part of the agreement signed. I haven't seen the agreement. I'm very happy to hear the member for Castries and Prime Minister say he's going to present the agreement to the House. They're going to want to put a courthouse inside that building. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking of irritations and the issue of resolving irritations and commending the fact that this legislation deals with irritation. Now, I just want you to think, Mr. Speaker, if that is true, what is this going to mean for my constituents down from Beaufort South? You know what it means, Mr. Speaker? You pay a bus from Beaufort South to come up to Castries. When you reach Castries, you have to pay another bus from Castries to go to Badawash, to go to a courthouse in Badawash. And then when you finish Badawash, you have to pay a bus to go down to Castries, and then from Castries down to Beaufort. Now, if you are from Ladbury, Mr. Speaker, or you are from, let us say, you are from Saltibus or Sozel, you have to pay a bus to Beaufort. Then from Beaufort, you have to pay a bus to Castries. And then from Castries, you have to pay by the way. These are the things that get people in the South aggrieved And these are the things that make them feel that we are operating two societies in this country, one for the benefit of the people in the north, and a different one for the benefit of the people of the south. And this country is too small for this kind of thing. So when you're telling me you're going to go and locate a court up there, why are you deliberately burdening the people in the south of the island? Why? For what reason? Why are we doing this? It's the same way, Mr. Speaker, I have spoken repeatedly about another irritation. Civil status records, and I have pleaded for an office of civil status to be located in the south. For precisely the same reasons that I have spoken about in relation to people from Saltibus or from Suzel or from Labrie coming up to Castries. The burden is heavier because of the sheer costs involved. And you know, at some time soon we have to talk about the civil status registry. I don't know under whose jurisdiction it is, but something is not right in there, you know. Because the powers that were entrusted under that act are not being sensibly utilized. And so, Mr. Speaker, any legislation that helps to reduce bureaucracy, that removes irritation, that tackles the unhappiness of the citizens of this country will find my support. This is in that vein. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, those who sit and listen to me and say, well, oh, they're talking about that because he just reached 70. Yeah, of course it affects me, but you're far behind. But you're far behind. You can do what you want. Well, you'll be lucky if you get there. But you're far behind, Mr. Speaker. I saw it in your eyes, Mr. Speaker. I saw your looks and I knew you're betraying yourself, Mr. Speaker. It's an inevitability. So, Mr. Speaker, maybe one day let's talk to the citizens and ask them what is irritating them in the business of governance. And I've given you some already, Mr. Speaker, why we have to deal with NIC and deal with wealth. Another big one is Invest in Lucia, which I spoke about this morning, and the irritations that they cause to the citizens of this country. But that's the point, Mr. Speaker. So this is welcome legislation, Mr. Speaker. Welcome. I must tell you that though I said to you that we'll all get to 70, but I have to tell you and I have to confess openly to you, Mr. Speaker, I didn't think I would reach 70 so fast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Barbano, member for South, would you turn off your microphone?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I rise to respond to a concern by the parliamentary rep for Beaufort South with respect to attending to some of the irritating issues that some people have been raising in the society. And I rise just for clarification for this House that the government is currently working on the issue of decentralization of some government services. And the Department of Public Service was given the assignment from the Honorable Prime Minister to address these pressing issues. And for this, we have actually started working on the issue of passports, where persons could begin to verify their documents, and it will cost the government some money for us to issue the passports in the South, but we are already in dialogue with the Canadian company that actually designed the e-passport mechanisms to issue passports. So the second stage will be not just vetting documents and verifying, but also persons maybe from Mico South. Some people from Mico North prefer to go to Beaufort for services, and Soufrière and these areas. We have already identified the location for the operation. So in the coming months, we will see that kind of services coming. The other departments of government are also identifying services that they would want to offer where we decentralize some of the operations of government. I also want to stress that the DigiGov, the digitization of government services, is well on its way, where government is actually preparing to provide 159 services online. And so far, I think we have started with about 11. And persons are requesting the license and documents from the registry. And so far, they are actually working well. They have a few persons stationed in Viewfort to assist the public in applying for the documents. Soufriere is also asking for decentralization of services, and this too the Prime Minister has asked that we address that. So we are well on our way. We may not have all the resources to move at the pace that some people may want, but that is already in the works. So I just felt it was necessary to clarify that point, Mr. Speaker. That's it. Right?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, just on that same vein that the Minister spoke, the Accountant General has just informed me that the system is being put in place for people to collect their checks. Instead of coming to Castries, they collect, instead of coming to Castries to collect their checks, the system is being put in place that they can collect their checks in Soufriere. And if you started in Soufriere, going to Viewfort, Soufriere first, and Viewfort. That's what he told me. He said starting in Soufriere the same day, Soufriere Viewfort.
Thank you very much,
Senior Minister.
Members, for your contributions. And just to close off, I'm reminded that statistics, as they are, show that, we have an aging population, and on one hand, life expectancy is increasing, and on the other hand, you have many more young people dying, whether through vehicle accidents, gun violence, etc. And so we need to be able to create an environment that is tolerant to our Asian population. I commend this bill.
And just for the record, the Senior Minister was speaking for himself about the aging population. Members, the question is that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill be read a second time. And I'll put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Act, Cap 8.01.
Clause 2.
Amendment of Section 28.
Wait, not yet. Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Honourable members, the question is that the committee rises and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honourable members, I beg to report that the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendments. Senior Minister.
I beg to move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Honourable members, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the motor vehicles and road traffic bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the King's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This Act may be cited as the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Act 2022.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stands adjourned, sine die.
Before I move the motion, I wish to invite the member for Vieux-Fort South to accept the invitation that I have put out from day one to form the House committees, which are the quickest, least costly, and surest ways of getting to the problems that you spoke about. The member for Vieux-Fort North and Minister for Health has in fact accepted, and the House will soon be asked to form a committee on health. So I would wish to just leave you that invitation, member for Vieux-Fort South. Honourable members, the question is that this House do stand adjourned sine die. Sine die. And now put the question, as many as of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.
Eh bien, nous venons au bout de la session qui consiste aujourd'hui, côté discuter plusieurs différentes motions à ce affaires Baoui pour Noël quand il a crié avec le gouvernement il parlé la discussion pas tout pas parler à ça mais la discussion à ça aussi au titre après-midi la motion, il a été discuté, ça va créer amendment tax, ça veut dire, il a discuté des affaires côté monde qui a reçu $25,000 par l'année, qui n'a pas payé taxe avec selon le gouvernement, ça a bien chassé les gens qui ont travaillé en différents. Qui c'est en public et bien qui c'est le gouvernement qui travaille depuis qu'il a payé, il a gagné $25,000 et bien moins que ça par l'année il n'a pas payé taxe avec selon discussion qui était tient ici il est capable de conclure l'année 14,000 personnes qui ont bénéfice de décision ça discussion ça et bien loi ça là et bien amendement ça là qui passe là aujourd'hui. Aussi, nous sommes aujourd'hui, la tenue, ça c'est motor vehicles, enfin, loi pour mener l'âge plus haut pour les gens qui ont chauffé machine. Pour le moment, les gens qui ont conduire machine, enfin, depuis arrivé l'âge 70 l'année, il y a pour faire l'examen, tout le bagage comme ça, avec la loi aujourd'hui, qui mettait plus haut pour 75 l'année, avec pour commencer à faire ça, avec ça, tenir en discussion, la loi ça a été fait, maintenant qui mettait la loi ça devant, c'est le ministre qui a une responsabilité pour les affaires transport, honorable Stephenson King. C'est lui qui présentait avec la petite discussion sur ça. Le premier monde qui parlait, c'est honorable Kenyan, Dr. Kenyan Tani, qui aussi parlé, parce que l'autre bagaille dit qui a empêché le gouvernement de faire bon travail, c'est la gouvernance. J'attends premier, ça c'est quelqu'un qui a consiste, m'a dit pour adresser le problème ça là, avec invité pour un comité qui a consiste fait, avec invité pour lui-même servir dans le comité ça ensemble avec le ministre pour santé. Avec aussi, la tenue l'autre discussion à ce. Ah ouais, la pas une discussion, la tenue mieux présentée pour premier pour mettre à ce table là, ça c'est affaires, ça nous te dit en commencement en discussion aujourd'hui, ça fait ça nous a créé l'audience, l'audience, ça c'est Caraïbes là, ça a créé. C'est enfin pour simplifier sorti en privy council là avec pour commencer et bien entrer en l'audience Caraïbes là même ça va créer Caribbean Court of Appeal. So, c'est ça qui était discuté là aujourd'hui. Mais comme on dit, c'est pour présenter avec plus tard. Mais il parle, mais ça c'est un gros changement en constitution pays avec l'autre la fois qu'il a discuté ça. C'est comme ça il passé, on a placé Winston Springer qui a plus de détails en anglais.
Pas plus de détails, mais qui juste dit ça qui fait aujourd'hui. In summing up, it is said that when a man tortures himself, he feels that it gives him a right to torture others and inclines him to accept any system of dogma by which this right is fortified. When we resume this afternoon after a late lunch break, the onslaught on the member for Micoud South and former Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Alan Chesney was taken on, or the baton was passed on from the member for Vieux-Fort South to the member for Vieux-Fort North, who, like the member for Vieux-Fort South, blasted the former Prime Minister for the immense damage done to Vieux-Fort, the economy and the health sector by the former administration. It was then the present Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Philip J. Spears' term to sum up the debate on the Income Tax Amendment Act. Mr. Pierre literally debunked every aspect of the member for Micoud South's contribution to the debate on the subject in a simple, honest, deliberate and purposeful manner, giving details of the people who are to benefit under the new tax regime, answering life's most persistent and urgent question, which is, what are you doing for others? One small move in the direction of improving the life of St. Lucians. 14,000 in the beginning. The bill was read a third time and passed. The security interest in movable property was read, and that bill will replace the Bill of Sale Act. It was read a second time, went through all the stages and passed. Finally, the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment was taken through all its stages, removing compulsory driving or driver's test for 70-year-olds to 75 years. Great news for lots of friends of mine. Irritations is what the former Prime Minister Kennedy Anthony referred to such laws as. If serving is below you, leadership is beyond you. On behalf of Michael Gasper and the rest of the team from the Government Information Service, I'm Winston Springer, saying have a pleasant night's rest and a good day tomorrow. Good night to everyone until we meet again, right back here at the St. Lucia House of Assembly.